Perfect. Okay. Well, I have other guests. So the videos are not showing. There we are. Get some video going here. Awesome. And I just need to reverse names. Hello, everybody joining Baz Bites. Welcome to another episode. I'm moving some camera stuff around here, so if you see some of the behind the scenes as I'm getting these cameras set up, it's perfect. Mike, can you do me a favor and just tilt your camera down a little bit? Because we just see from like your chin to the top of your head. It's really cute. Oh. And I'm going to zoom my camera out just a little bit so this video, you're not so much. Whoa, too far. Too far.
Is that a better
That
view?
is much better. Much better. Awesome.
Right.
You don't want the Wayne's World extreme close-up, Jeff?
Extreme close-up. I totally do. Next episode. We'll do that. We'll make that effect for the next episode. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining. And thank you guys for being here so much for another episode of Baz Bites Live. We do this every week at 11 a.m. here on the YouTubes. And this week, we've got a special guest, Mike McCullough. You can see his name there in our new fancy, overlays here. We'll get started here in just a minute. But as you're joining the live stream, really appreciate you being here. This should be fun and interactive. It's a conversation. We're talking about all kinds of cool WebEx stuff today. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, the comments and concerns, you can keep them someplace else. But if you have questions for us, or if you just want to chat, definitely throw them into the YouTube chat. We'd love to see it. We'll make this interactive. We'll answer your questions live. It'll be a lot of fun. And before we dive into our topics for the day, let's introduce the two guests. So, Tom, why don't you go first, and then we'll roll over to our super special guest, Mike.
Sure thing. Thanks, Jeff. My name's Tom Freeman. I'm a systems architect out of the Bay Area Select team here at Cisco. I'm what's called just a generalist field engineer, so I cover every technology. So while I love collaboration, I don't quite specialize in it to the extent that Mike does. So I cover data center, enterprise networking, security, and collab. So yeah, that's my role. I support a couple of tech companies, health companies, and some other manufacturing companies here in the Bay Area.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Tom. Mike,
Yep,
to
my
you,
pleasure.
sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. So I'm collaboration specialist here with Cisco, and that's a broad term to cover basically real-time communications for voice, contact center, video, conferencing, anything collaboration within Cisco is what I support. I cover the Bay Area region, which is Jeff's area, so all the way over the Bay Area. We cover a multitude of clients from retail to healthcare, very similar to Tom, and then I just specialize in that space. So excited to be here, excited to talk about WebEx and some of the really cool things that we have coming out in that platform right now and in the near future. So
Totally, man. So I know. Can I kick this all off? Cisco's making a lot of headway with WebEx, really putting a lot of time and investment into new features and functionality that we really want to make sure helps businesses and individuals be as productive and scale as much as they can, especially now that most everyone's working from home. And even with developing out there as a business, like kind of how to safely bring people back into work, whether that's into an office or a different collaboration model than they've done before. I think tools like WebEx make that so much more powerful and can really impact what that can look like for any business. And I know that we've got our new 40.9 release out, and maybe it's cool to talk a little bit about what that brings. And specifically today, though, I know we want to dive into the Webex Virtual Assistant and our latest announcement of the acquisition of Babble Labs. And I love just saying that name. It makes me happy, Babble Labs. And what that really brings. Because I know there's a lot of talk about what that means out there, but I'd love to hear from you all of the updates and all the hotness. So you pick where you want to dive in, and we'll just go from there.
yeah, I mean, let's start from the base platform. You brought it up. I kind of refer to it as our September release. And maybe we've got a more technical audience, but I try and steer away from the 40 dots, blah, blah, blahs.
All right, fair enough.
Right? So I don't numbers. But what we've done, to your point, Jeff, everybody's work from home. We're moving in that direction. And honestly, we see a lot of people probably aren't going to go back to an office anytime soon. So how do we empower that and make that really impactful when you're having those meetings? Because that's really, we need to get into a meeting, we need to get what we need to get done, and then we need to leave and go on to the next one. So some of the improvements around in the back end that you're probably not going to see, audio and video improvements when you're using voice over IP, really making those conversations flawless in a sense so that we don't have jitter and interruption in these calls. Enhancements to the whole platform and layout, just making it easier. We need everybody using these tools. They have to use these tools. So why don't we make it simple for everybody to join? Stop hiding buttons, allow them to be dynamic and easy to understand for anyone, right? I mean, one thing that we've seen in collaboration is there was a lot of high-tech companies that adopted this stuff really early. And you have some industries that the user base is a little bit older. Maybe they're very, very specialized, right? And they haven't adopted technology as quickly. Healthcare is one of these where you've got a lot of people, and I've seen this a lot actually. Hey, we're in the business of saving lives, learn technology. So make it simple so I learn how to use it really easily and it's intuitive, and I can go back to like saving people's lives, because that's what really matters, and this tech stuff really doesn't. I have to use it, but where do we get there? So ton of improvement in making that easier. But
real quick on that one, Mike, I think it's funny. I was reflecting on this earlier this week and thinking about the way in which we're developing WebEx and what features are coming out and why. And it's kind of funny. I love WebEx, and I have buddies who've been using it for a long time, and to them, WebEx has just always been awesome. But for people using it for the first time in the past, it wasn't maybe as seamless or as easy to get their head around as possible. And so it seems like a lot of the feature development before the recent shift in Cisco's mindset was around making WebEx better for WebEx users. And it seems like now the big mantra that we're behind is making WebEx better for everyone and making it really easy for those that have never used it before or that have maybe not seen it for a while. So it's kind of funny. Like I feel like we've always done a great job of making it better and better if you already kind of know the ropes, and streamlining it and bringing it down and making the icons like, more tidy and clean. So I like that we're kind of finding this healthy middle ground now where things are very obvious and quick and easy. And it's funny you mentioned earlier about the desire to get stuff done and just sort of get on with the meeting and get the tech out of the way. I was looking at webex.com today, and the in big bold letters, the first phrase we have up there is meet less, which I think is a pretty funny concept when you think about WebEx. It's like, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. It says meet less, connect more, get stuff done. So I like the messaging. I like where the portfolio is going. I just had to chime in because I thought it was kind of a silly thing, just a transition to making it easy.
It's very, very true. And I was on with somebody the other day, and they're like, look, WebEx in a robust campus environment with gigs and gigs of bandwidth is phenomenal. How do you take that home, right? And we've made that shift and made it to where now you can take that home, and it's important. But meeting less is also extremely important. We're finding, I've been remote for years, so I've kind of gotten over it, or maybe I just deal with it. But like virtual meeting burnout is a real thing. And how do we downsize how much time we're actually spending trying to talk to each other? When this whole thing first started, I was in meetings because I was stuck at home, and I was like, great, we can start stacking up meetings. When you have 14 meetings in a day, like you start to go crazy. You have 7 hours of 30-minute back-to-back meetings. Your mind starts to just rumble, and you bumble your words. And I mean, I'm probably doing a little bit of that because it's Friday, and I need the weekend to come faster. But
yeah.
Anyway,
you got the Hawaiian shirt on. You're almost there.
Well, and
Friday, Friday.
And Mike, you bring up such a relevant point right now that it's really easy to make these comments like meet less, connect more. All these, I mean, and they're true. They're totally true. But I think one of the things that they leave out, or the subtleties we don't often talk about, is, and I think you're going to get to some of this with, especially like the virtual assistant, is it's less of like the meeting piece of it, and it's a lot more that people just are, and you just said it a second ago, that like you burn yourself out every day because you can be on these meetings all day long. There is no travel time, like especially for us in sales, where we are on the road driving from a customer to another customer back to the office, or whatever. You'd have an hour of basically downtime. Maybe you made a phone call or two, but you didn't schedule anything. You're on the road on a commute. So you actually had a chance to kind of like, I'm not going to do anything right now. I'll put a podcast on. I can chill. Well, now you just sit there all day long on call after call after call. So how do you make the experiences while you're in those meetings less painful so that you can try to get back to the time that you actually need to use?
Well, I think some of it takes that processing time, right? Even if you're listening to a podcast, it's just jumbling around in the back of your head. And then an hour later, you're like, that's the answer, right? But when you're constantly thinking and intaking more information, you don't have that time to really put all those pieces together. So that's, it's funny. We were talking, it was about a week ago, and I was late to a call, and I was like, why were you late? And it's like, well, I can't use traffic. I can't use a parking spot. I can't use, there was a long line at Starbucks. Yeah, guys, I just didn't show up to the meeting on time. Like, that's what it was. I was in the other room. Sorry. Didn't put a watch on today. So we lose a little bit of that in this new world. But getting back to the technology point of things, Webex Assistant, and anybody that doesn't know, we acquired a company a while back. Name doesn't matter. We built it into our platform, and it's an AI tool. And this is going both into our hardware devices as well as our meeting software platform as well. And this is our voice assistant that allows us to do all sorts of things. On the devices, which we'll go into a little more detail later, you can start meetings, schedule meetings, book rooms out, do some really cool stuff in a touchless way. But in the platform, in the software side of the house, we're getting into transcripts, captions, and then all of this information, as well as voice activities, being trapped in the back end, captured, and easily shareable. Now, what does that mean for us, Jeff and Tom? It means we can have a conversation, and I don't have to sit here and type notes. Too often in these calls, you see the side of my head because I'm looking at my other monitor and I'm trying to type out everything that you're saying and capture relevant details and, oh, what's the sentiment in this? When really I should just be paying attention to what we're talking about, capturing the feeling, looking at your body language, and then have all those details in the back end. Have somebody else capturing that for me.
That is, I think, it's not talked about, I think, enough, but it's so important. I was literally on the call with a partner of Cisco's 25 minutes before we jumped on this live stream. And that's exactly what I was doing. I had Trello open over here, and I've got a card, and I'm like feverishly trying to type notes and format it so that I can capture the data. And you realize really quickly, I'm like, I should be staring right here at the thing that they're showing me on the screen because that's the important thing. I want to learn what they're talking about. I don't want to be talking a lot. I don't want to be typing. I just want to consume what they're telling me. And if all I'm doing is trying to feverishly take notes and remember this on the fly in 30 minutes before I have to jump on my next thing, I mean, just saying it makes me feel a little stressed out.
Oh, yeah. Well, and let's be honest. How many people aren't taking notes and staring at another screen at a crossword or their messaging tool or this YouTube video instead of the meeting that they're supposed to be on right now? I mean, come on, we've all done it.
I swear I didn't have World of Warcraft up on the other screen. I promise. This time.
But I mean, that's what we get into, right? And like, how often are we distracted by something? I turned my messaging client to do not disturb so I didn't look down at it. I ran into this in-person meetings, right? Because we're all field sales folks here on this call, or SEs, and you can't take notes on your cell phone. Because if I pull this out in the middle of a meeting, I've been called out on it before. I might be trying to take a note or trying to write down a calendar action item, and you get a CIO that looks at you and like, why are you looking at your phone? Who's texting you? What's important, right? Oh, well, I'm going to pull out a piece of paper. If I have a paper notepad, they know exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But we translate that. How does that translate into the virtual world? And there's a lot of that going on right now of, okay, we've been doing this for 6 months. What does this look like? What is the etiquette? I think a lot of that has to be built out, especially for folks that aren't used to it, right?
Definitely.
And this is
I think that behavioral stuff is actually the trickier part, because Webex is getting to the point where we can make things easier for both the folks that want to truly engage and have an assistant that can take notes for them and take action items. Honestly, speak to the assistant, it kind of feels like having like an associate systems engineer for me on the call, where I don't need to worry about notes. I don't need to worry about them following up with something. It's all just done by the assistant. But the flip side to what you guys are talking about, where it makes things, it allows you to focus and get the communication going and actually watch the video. The flip side is that it actually allows you to multitask a little bit better as well. If you need to multitask, if I'm monitoring an SR, I've got an issue going on and I need to talk to TAC really quickly, I can come back to the notes later, and I'm not going to miss some pivotal information, and I'll actually have a log of what went down, and it's really nice. It kind of serves both audiences and allows you to pay attention to folks and actually take up the body language, but it gives you some nice traceability we haven't had before, which is really appreciated.
So let's dive in a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like in real life and kind of two situations that we're seeing. So,
and just real quick, actually,
in,
sorry, just to pause for a second, Mike, not to stop your flow or anything, but I want to make a point of letting everyone who's watching right now know that if you have questions or if you're curious about anything that Mike's talking about, or if you want to join as part of the conversation, definitely put it in the chat. We would love to talk with you. Part of this is being interactive and making this a conversation. So definitely let us know if you have questions or any feedback for what's going on. Awesome, Mike. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. So I kind of break down meetings into two types of meetings. We have your client-facing, external-facing meetings where you've got kind of one persona, and you've got your internal meetings where things are a little bit different. And when we're talking about the Webex Assistant, I see it being used in two different ways. A lot of what we were talking about where it takes notes and you're just paying attention in the meeting and it's doing a lot of stuff silently. I like to use that when I'm on with clients, right? I don't want interruptions in the middle of the meeting. I don't want to try and talk to this thing. But if we're having internal conversations, this tool goes beyond just taking transcripts and making some action items and following up on who said what at what point in the meeting, which is all really cool. But you can also talk to it and you can start interacting with it. And you can say, okay, Webex, schedule a follow-up meeting for Tuesday at 3 p.m. Maybe we just agreed on a time. That'll take that calendar that you've hooked into it and schedule a follow-up meeting for you. Okay, Webex, take an action item that we are going to call the customer at 2 p.m. or whatever that may be. And there's a list of action items with summaries, agendas, notes, follow-ups, parking lot items, scheduling things. They're all available on the website. I might have misnamed one of them, but you can use that real time in a call. Now, if I'm on with Tom, it's not going to disrupt the meeting if the little voice assistant is talking back to us like a Alexa or a Google would, right? I may not want to do that with a customer, but internally you can take that power of that tool and just start expanding it more and more and more and really start leveraging that. Now, maybe you have clients where you would use that. Maybe it's a fun tool. I like using it just because it looks cool and I can talk to this thing and it starts talking back. But let's be honest. I mean, we're not doing a ton of work. We use it mostly for the follow-up. So
yeah,
just something I wanted to point out there. I don't know. Do y'all use voice assistants in your real life? I've got them everywhere in my house.
I do. In fact, with the advent of Hey Webex or Okay Webex, I find myself sometimes needing to not say some of the other assistant names. I get them all confused and they get jealous, and yeah, a lot going on. It is a weird thing. I mean, I'll just say it's kind of weird. I have enough spy bots in my life already, listening and watching to everything I do. So why not just introduce one into the virtual meeting space? But on a lighter note, though, I think you missed one of the key features here, Mike, which is the ability to have the digital assistant or the virtual assistant tell you a joke. We've got one particularly notorious SEM, or he's actually a senior SEM now, that loves to start off big meetings and just always breaks the ice with the cheesiest, corniest jokes. So to prep for this earlier today, I asked the assistant to give me a couple jokes. And we've got one here. To the mathematicians that thought of the idea of zero, thanks for nothing. I thought that was pretty good. And then even better here, why did the developer go broke? Because he used up all his cash. So if you ever need corny jokes, it's like a bottomless pit.
That could be worth the entire investment in the platform right there is, just a couple of jokes.
Icebreakers. Yep.
Well, so Tom, you bring up a good point. Yeah, we have spy bots everywhere, right? I'm sure Bezos and whoever runs Google are listening to everything I'm saying with my 1,000 devices. But we own all this technology. It's one cool thing that Cisco does is we go and acquire stuff and then we wrapper our security around it. So there is a layer of Cisco security with this. This is not something we're just shipping off to a third-party company, which I find a little more putting me at ease.
Yeah,
right?
A bit more comforting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, I'm talking to these things all day long.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love. So I know we've talked about. I mean, I would love to keep going down the rabbit hole of the virtual assistant for sure, because I think there's a lot to talk about there too, and we can definitely go into more detail, I think, as well. But I think now might be a really good time to take a quick break, check in with the audience, and see if there's anybody out there who wants to ask some questions. None have come through yet, but that's okay. Anyone catching this on the replay, we'd love to see your comments and questions later on. We'll definitely get back to you. Mike and Tom and I will just keep an eye on those videos on the video later on. But I think this might be a good time also to segue into sort of our new intent to acquire company. The one I love saying, the Babble Labs. I don't know. I hear it's pretty amazing.
It is very, very cool. So Babble Labs is an acquisition we made. We're developing it right into the Webex platform. It's noise reduction and noise cancellation in the background of your meetings. So this is more important now than ever. It was important in offices, but now, I mean, we've got dogs barking, babies crying. We've got, my wife is in there making a smoothie the other day, and we've got some super horsepower blender that'll shake the whole house. And I've still got to be on video calls, right? I bought the best blender, let's just say.
Gotta have the Vitamix.
Dude, right?
Absolutely.
I just bought one recently too. I use it actually to make salsa. I make salsa with it. That's my jam.
I literally keep a pair of earmuffs to protect my hearing when you bring that thing up to 10. Holy moly, that thing can be deafening. Anyway, I know what you mean.
So that's the exact reason that we need noise cancellation. We have all of these things in our environment, right? And when we're working from home, we may not have little soundproof chambers. It looks like Jeff might be in one right now.
Yeah, he does have one.
I do have tiles. I do have sound tiles everywhere inside of here.
So what are we doing to adjust that? And what are we doing to address, again, how do we make a meeting where you're not getting distracted by this stuff in the background? How are we making this a productive, quick meeting? If the person who's speaking has to stop for 5 minutes while a leaf blower goes by, or they live in a city with fire trucks. So you turn this tool on and you hear the person's voice. And if you go to the Babble Labs website, they've got a couple of videos on right now where there's a dude sitting on a sailboat in the middle of the ocean, and he's speaking. The first one is him speaking. You can barely hear what he's saying. They turn on the noise cancellation, and all you hear is him. You don't even hear the background. They do another one with a lady standing in Times Square. There's one where a guy's standing in front of a dump truck in his backyard while they're like digging up his backyard, and they're actively like working. It's nuts.
I saw one yesterday, the day before. We were doing a customer demonstration, and the person we were talking to is a Cisco employee, lives back east someplace, and he's like, well, I'm in my house and there's nobody outside working, so here, I'll do this. And he picked up his Makita, his power drill, and he's like, here, I'll show it to you. And he pulls the trigger down and he holds it and it starts spinning, and you can hear it. He goes, but here, just to make sure you guys, the audience, didn't think that he was really biffing it too much, he literally held it right up to the camera so that you can see he's doing this. And it's super, super loud. Hit the button, you can't hear anything. Nothing at all. Like the volume goes completely away. All you hear is him talking like 3 feet behind the thing as he's holding it, or 2 feet, whatever his arm length is. And it was surreal how well that thing works.
Yeah, it's one of the most exciting updates I think that we've had in the platform from just a pure kind of horsepower standpoint. Yes, we've done some cool stuff to make it more intuitive. Yes, we've done these things. That stuff is kind of standard in the industry. If you're not making your UI work better for people, what are you doing, right? And everybody's doing that, and all of our competitors are. I haven't seen anybody else come out with something like this. And I think one of the things that Cisco has going for it in a really big way is our ability to not have to develop this stuff in-house. We can go buy the best of breed in these tools and bring them into our platforms. And that means that we can be faster, more agile, and bring these things to our customers in a meaningful way very quickly. So, and we've seen it not just for power drills or these things. Our Oslo team did a demo. They have a dancing toy llama, and it dances around on a desk, and it noise cancels. Dogs in the background. It's across the board. So that one's really exciting. We're going to have to look at the Cisco website for when that's actually going to be into the platform, but I think we're looking at the next month or so having that fully baked in and ready to go.
Oh, so that's very fast.
Quick
okay.
From acquisition to in the platform, moving quickly, putting it in place, making that stuff work. So
that's awesome. That's really good to hear. Yeah, because I think so often in the past we've done exactly what you described, Mike, where we have an acquisition strategy. That's how pretty much all of our really good technologies come into Cisco. I mean, Cisco develops a ton of amazing things from AIs to everything else. We have a lot of things that we work on too. It just, like you said, we can also do a good job of bringing these techs. I think in past years, we may not have always been as quick to get them into a production setting so businesses can use them right away. So I am really excited to see Babble Labs and that technology get in super fast because it's going to make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. Now, I am a little scared, I will say, because when I'm starting to do demos of this thing and it's 9 o'clock in the morning and I'm pulling out power tools and a drum kit, my wife might come through this door and start hitting me with something. So we're going to have to figure out how we do those demos correctly, but...
Yeah, I'm really curious. I really want to just kind of mess around with it and see what it does to the voice and how natural the voice is after all of the background stuff has been canceled out. And another neat feature that could probably help me do that a little bit easier is the transition we've made to now making recordings available in .mp4 format, which I think came out somewhat recently. Super nice. If you haven't checked out all the cool new features in the September release, definitely check out the release notes. Most release notes are pretty dry, but the Webex release notes are actually kind of a joy to go through because they're very graphical and pretty concise. But yeah, we've transitioned all the recording. No more ARFs that we're going to have that you can download. It's more MP4s. And I'll tell you, being an individual that helped out with some of the Cisco Live content this year, a lot of folks used Webex to record their video. And in the past, there was a limited amount of manipulation you could do with the layout of the recording. Now you have a lot of flexibility in terms of what you want your recording to look like. So if you want, you can have no video panels up. If you want, you can have more focus on video and actually adjust that layout. And that's going to be something administrators can set themselves or that individuals can set for their own meetings. So definitely take a look at that feature. That's a cool one that I like. I wouldn't normally think of Webex as a great mechanism through which you can create content, but turns out it is.
That's a really good point. And you know what? I would love to keep talking about that in detail, and I think that'll be good for a follow-up live stream or some other videos we can do, but we're right at the bottom of the hour, so I think it's probably a good time for us. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Yeah.
Real quick, if you want to see the September release and you want to see somebody record something on Webex, you can go to the Baz Bytes channel, and I've got a video up with the September release that I recorded on Webex, and you can see all of that in my beautiful face for another 3.5 minutes. So
it's perfect. And actually, that's exactly. I'm glad you brought that up. That's exactly where I was going to go with that, Mike. So before we wrap, there's a couple of notes I want to leave everyone with. But real quick, Mike, you just brought it up. So on the Baz Bytes YouTube channel, so if you go to cs.co/Baz-Bytes, I'll put it in the chat here in a second. If you're already here on YouTube, fantastic. But if you're catching this later on, you can go to the main homepage. And Mike just started creating some new content for us. You want to talk about that real briefly, what that new playlist is going to be?
Yeah, so we've got Mike's Minutes, and it's going to be hot collaboration, tips, tricks, little things that we're doing. The first 2 videos are the September release, as well as a little bit on Webex Assistant, keeping it short, sweet, to the point, but all the new fun things that are coming out in the platform and how we're using them internally.
Awesome. Thanks, dude. Tom, any parting words you want to leave our audience with before we wrap up today?
No, I'd say just take a look at the release notes. Honestly, release notes and the digital assistant guide. It goes through really succinctly all the commands you can use, has some examples of it, and shows you just how powerful this stuff can be. So don't take our word for it. Take a look at Mike's videos. Take a look at the release notes, and I think you'll be quite surprised at how much really lies under the hood of this platform that you think you probably know already.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for being here. And to everyone in the audience, thank you for joining us. Again, if you have other questions, again, like I said, put it in the comments. We'll come back and check these out later on and get back to you as soon as we can. If you like the video, give a big old thumbs up. It helps a lot. Hit subscribe there on the bottom, this side over here someplace, wherever it happens to be down there at the bottom of the window. Subscribe so you get notified of all of our other videos and future live streams. We go live every week, Friday mornings, 11 a.m. Pacific time here on all of the YouTubes. And to get notified, hit that little bell icon or else it won't notify you. Have a wonderful day, and thank you for joining us. We'll see you all next week.